I drank this every day. And you smiled.
The security camera blinked red at me like a mechanical eye that had seen too much. I should have known right then that installing a 24/7 surveillance system in my own house would either save my marriage or destroy it completely. Turns out, it did both. My name is Nick Warren, and 3 months ago I thought I had the perfect life. 37 years old, ex-military turned home security specialist, married to Claire for 12 years with 2 kids who still thought I hung the moon. We lived in a tidy suburban house in Millfield, the kind of place where neighbors wave from their driveways and kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on. I should have paid more attention to the details that didn't add up. Claire had been working late shifts at Millfield General Hospital more frequently. As a medical administrator, she claimed the new computer system required extra training sessions. When I'd ask about her day, she'd give me vague answers and change the subject to our kids, Ellie and Max. "How was work today?" I'd ask over dinner. "Oh, you know, the usual hospital drama. Dr. Peterson is still fighting with the nursing staff about scheduling." She'd fork her salad without making eye contact. "Ellie, tell Daddy about your science project." 8-year-old daughter would launch into an animated explanation about volcanoes, while 5-year-old Max tried to build towers with his chicken nuggets. Normal family dinner conversation, except for the way Claire kept checking her phone under the table. The weird hospital stories started around the same time. Claire would come home, laughing about inside jokes I didn't understand. "You should have seen David today," she'd say, hanging up her coat. "He got stuck in the supply closet for 20 minutes because the door handle broke. Poor guy was banging on the door until someone heard him." Disregarded Halloran was the hospital equipment sales representative. 41 years old, married with teenage kids, the kind of guy who wore expensive suits and drove a BMW. I'd met him at a few hospital Christmas parties. He had that cocky smile that suggested he thought he was God's gift to women. Claire's friend Trish, a nurse at the hospital, would call our house at odd hours. I'd answer and hear her giggling in the background. "Is Claire there? We need to discuss work stuff." More giggling. Then hushed conversations in our kitchen while I helped the kids with homework in the living room. Mrs. Callahan, our 60-something neighbor, started giving me sympathetic looks over the fence. She was the neighborhood's unofficial information network, and her pitying glances made my stomach turn. "How's Claire doing, Nick?" she'd ask while watering her roses. "She's been working such long hours lately. You must miss having her around." The final straw came on a Tuesday night in October. I'd just finished installing a top-of-the-line security system in our house. Motion sensors, door alarms, and cameras in every room except the bedrooms and bathrooms. "Professional courtesy from my own company," I told Claire. Really, I wanted to catch whoever had been stealing packages from our porch. I was in bed by 11, but Claire was still downstairs, claiming she needed to finish some paperwork. Around midnight, I heard voices from the kitchen. Plural. Voices. My phone buzzed at 3 in the morning. Jake Morrison, one of my installation technicians, was calling from the monitoring center. "Mr. Warren? I'm sorry to wake you, but I need to tell you something about your home system." I stumbled out of bed and walked into the hallway, keeping my voice low. "What's wrong? Is there a malfunction?" "Simmons, I've been monitoring the feeds like you requested, and I saw something in your kitchen footage from earlier tonight. I'm deleting this footage forever, and I'm telling you as a father and a friend. Get your kids and leave that house." I felt a chill run through me. I'd never thought about a chill run through my entire body. "What do you mean? What did you see?" Sir, what I witnessed at 3 a.m. in your kitchen made me physically sick. I had to step outside and vomit in the parking lot. I can't unsee it. Stay away from your wife." The line went dead. I stood in my hallway for 10 minutes, listening to Claire's steady breathing from our bedroom, processing what Jake had just told me. My wife, the mother of my children, the woman I'd loved for over a decade, had done something so disturbing that a hardened ex-cop like Jake Morrison couldn't stomach it. I needed to see that footage. I crept downstairs to my home office, moving like I was back on patrol in the Middle East. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like cracks in the silence. The security system's main console glowed softly on my desk, innocent as a sleeping cat. My hands shook as I pulled up the kitchen camera feed from earlier that night. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m. when the motion sensor activated. What I saw made me understand why Jake had vomited. Claire stood in our kitchen wearing nothing but a thin nightgown, her hair wild and her face streaked with something dark. She was talking to someone off camera, her voice too low for the audio to pick up clearly. But her gestures were animated, almost manic. She opened our refrigerator and pulled out containers I didn't recognize. Green liquid that looked like pond scum. Raw meat that might have been chicken, or might have been something else entirely. She dumped everything into our high-end blender, the one she used to make smoothies for the kids. "You know too much, don't you, you little bastard?" she hissed at our coffee machine. Actually hissed, like a snake. Then I saw the shadow. A man's silhouette moved into frame behind her. Large hands settled on her waist, and she leaned back against him. I couldn't see his face, but I recognized the expensive watch on his wrist. David Halloran's watch, the one he'd bragged about at the last Christmas party. The timestamp showed they'd been in my kitchen for over an hour. Claire poured the green mixture into a container labeled Nick's Morning Protein Shake in her neat handwriting. She'd been making me breakfast smoothies for the past month, claiming she wanted to help me get back in shape. I'd been drinking them every morning like a grateful husband. My stomach cramped as I realized what she'd been feeding me. And worse, I saw her preparing smaller containers labeled Ellie's Lunch and Max's Snack. She was poisoning all of us. I ejected the storage drive and pocketed it, then quietly packed bags for the kids. By 4:30 a.m., we were in my truck heading to my brother's house across town. Ellie and Max slept in their car seats, unaware that their world had just exploded. At 7 a.m., I called my old Army buddy Eli Martinez. He'd been working as a private investigator since leaving the service, specializing in divorce cases and corporate espionage. "I think my wife is trying to poison me," I told him without preamble. "Or the blender, or both. I need your help." Eli had seen enough. Combat to take anything seriously. "I'll be right there. Don't go back to that house, and don't eat or drink anything she's given you recently." Too late for that advice, but noted. Rinse. "Nick, I'm serious. If she's been dosing you with something, you need medical attention." I thought about the past month of morning smoothies, the way I'd been feeling tired and nauseous, the headaches I'd attributed to work stress. What kind of person poisons their own children? "The kind we're going to stop," Eli said grimly. "I'll bring my surveillance equipment. We're going to find out exactly what your wife and her boyfriend are planning." Unrestricted. The word tasted like poison in my mouth, which seemed appropriate given the circumstances. Eli's private investigation office occupied the second floor of a strip mall, between a dry cleaner and a Chinese restaurant. The walls were covered with surveillance photos, city maps, and a whiteboard that currently displayed my wife's daily schedule in neat columns. "She's methodical," Eli observed, tapping the board with a red marker. "Hospital shift from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Then she usually stops at the grocery store. But twice this week, she's made unscheduled stops at the Marriott downtown." I studied the surveillance photos he'd taken. Claire walking into the hotel with David Halloran. Claire and David in the hotel parking lot, his hands on her face. Claire laughing at something he'd whispered in her ear. "How long do you think this has been going on?" I asked. Based on her behavior patterns, at least 3 months. Probably longer. Eli pulled out another folder. "I followed her friend Trish yesterday. She's definitely involved. Look at this." The photos showed Trish meeting with a man I didn't recognize outside the hospital. They were exchanging envelopes. "Who's the guy?" "Jared Kowalski. Works in the hospital's medical supply department. Has access to pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, patient records. Whatever they're planning involves hospital resources." Buzzed with a text from Claire. "Where are you? Kids weren't in their beds this morning. I'm worried sick." I showed Eli the message. He snorted. "She's worried about her plan falling apart. Has she tried calling you?" 17 missed calls since 6 a.m. Terminated. Don't answer. Let her panic. Panicked people make mistakes. We spent the afternoon installing covert surveillance equipment around the hospital. Eli had contacts from his PI work who could get us access to employee parking areas and public spaces. I felt like I was planning a military operation, which in a way, I was. That evening, we positioned ourselves in Eli's van across from the hospital's employee entrance. At 9:47 p.m., Claire emerged with David and Trish. They walked to David's BMW, talking animatedly. "Can you get audio from here?" I asked. Eli adjusted his equipment. "Not clearly, but I can read lips. Your wife just said something about next week and finishing the plan." David opened his trunk and pulled out a large duffel bag. He handed it to Claire, who immediately passed it to Trish. Whatever was in that bag was heavy. Trish nearly dropped it. "They're moving fast," Eli murmured. "Whatever they're planning is happening soon." My flare again. This time I answered. "Nick, thank God. Where are you? Where are the kids? I've been calling all day." "We're safe," I said carefully. "Safe? Safe from what? What's going on? You're scaring me." The concern in her voice sounded genuine, which made everything worse. She was a better actress than I'd given her credit for. "I know about the smoothies, Claire." Her silence. Then, "What smoothies? Nick, you're not making sense. Are you having another episode?" Another episode. She was referring to the PTSD counseling I'd received after coming back from deployment, using my mental health history against me. "I know about David." More silence. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Colder. "I don't know what you think you know, but you're wrong. Come home so we can discuss this like adults." "I'll come home when I'm ready." I hung up and immediately powered off the phone. "She's good," Eli admitted, "but she made a mistake. Did you catch it? She asked where the kids were, but she didn't ask if they were okay. A worried mother would want to know if her children were hurt or sick first." Exactly. She's worried about logistics, not their welfare. We followed David's BMW to a storage unit facility on the outskirts of town. David and Trish unloaded several boxes from his trunk, including the duffel bag Claire had given Trish. They were inside the storage unit for 20 minutes. "Tomorrow night, we find out what they're storing in there," Eli said. But tomorrow night turned out to be too late. My phone rang at 6 a.m. It was my boss, Tom Bradley, and he sounded grim. "Nick, I need you to come in early today. The police want to ask you some questions about suspicious activity at your residence." "What kind of suspicious activity?" "Your wife filed a report claiming you've been acting erratically, and she's concerned for the children's safety. She mentioned the security system and suggested you might be using it to monitor her inappropriately." I felt the trap closing around me. Claire was spinning the narrative, making me the unstable husband while she played the concerned wife and mother. "Tom, I can explain everything." "I hope so, because Detective Morrison is here with a warrant to examine our surveillance equipment. If there's anything you need to tell me, now would be the time." Jeff Morrison. Jake Morrison's older brother. The same Jake who'd called to warn me about the kitchen footage. This wasn't a coincidence. I met Eli at a diner downtown to strategize. He'd been busy overnight, pulling together information about David Halloran's finances and business dealings. "Your wife's boyfriend is in serious debt," Eli reported over coffee and eggs. "His sales territory has been underperforming for 2 years. He owes money to some very unpleasant people in Chicago." "How much money?" $200 plus interest. The kind of debt that gets people's legs broken if they don't pay up. Unless the pieces started falling into place. So he needs cash fast. And Claire has access to your joint accounts, your life insurance policy, the equity in your house. If something happened to you, she'd inherit everything. And if she could prove you were mentally unstable, she might even get custody of the kids and their trust funds. I thought about the green liquid Claire had been putting in our food. What if she wasn't trying to poison us? What if she was trying to make us sick enough to seem unstable? Allies nodded grimly. Certain pills can cause paranoia, hallucinations, erratic behavior. If you started acting crazy, and she had witnesses to back up her story, she could have me committed. Or worse, if you became violent or dangerous, if you threatened her or the children, someone might have to defend themselves. I finished his thought. David would be the hero who saved Claire and the kids from their unstable husband and father, and inherited your life insurance money in the process. The rage that me was white hot and pure. These people weren't just stealing my wife and destroying my marriage. They were planning to destroy my life, take my children, and probably get me ended in the process. "What's our next move?" I asked. Eli smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "We give them exactly what they want. We make you look unstable and dangerous, but we do it on our terms, with our cameras rolling." That afternoon, I drove to David's BMW dealership. He worked part-time selling luxury cars when he wasn't peddling medical equipment. I found his personal BMW in the employee parking lot, the same car I'd seen him using to transport Claire to their hotel meetings. I'd brought a bag of frozen shrimp from the grocery store. I popped the hood and stuffed the shrimp deep into his air conditioning system, then slashed 2 of his tires with a utility knife. On his windshield, I left a note written in red marker. "Next time, it's you." Then I sat in my truck across the street and waited. David emerged from the dealership at closing time, talking on his phone. Probably to Claire, I realized. When he saw his car, he started shouting, loud enough for me to hear from 50 yards away. "What the heck? Who did this?" He found my note and his face went pale. He looked around the parking lot frantically, then called someone. Within 10 minutes, a police cruiser arrived. I drove away before they could spot me, but I'd accomplished what I needed. David was scared, and scared people make mistakes. That evening, Eli and I broke into the storage unit David and Trish had visited. It wasn't technically breaking and entering. Eli had legitimate locksmith tools and a cover story about a client who'd lost their keys. The kind of gray area work that private investigators specialized in. Inside the unit, we found boxes of medical supplies stolen from the hospital. Pills, syringes, monitoring equipment. But the most interesting discovery was a folder containing detailed information about my daily routines, my work schedule, my medical history, and financial records. They've been planning this for months. "Look at this," Eli said, holding up a handwritten timeline in Claire's neat script. It outlined a 3-phase plan. Phase 1 involved making me sick and erratic with doctored food and drinks. Phase 2 would escalate to public incidents that established a pattern of mental instability. Phase 3 was labeled simply, resolution. I didn't want to think too hard about what resolution meant. "We need to get this to the police," I said. "Not yet. This proves they're planning something, but it doesn't prove what. We need them to make their move while we're recording everything." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop harassing David or you'll regret it. This is your only warning." I showed it to Eli. "Trish?" "Relieved. They're rattled. Time to rattle them more." I decided to reclaim my house. At 2 a.m., I used my security company's master codes to disable the alarm system I'd installed. I wanted Claire to know I was there, but I wanted to control the encounter. She was asleep in our bed, the bed we'd shared for 12 years, where we'd conceived our children, where we'd whispered plans for our future. Now it felt like enemy territory. I sat in the chair by the window and waited for her to wake up. She sensed my presence around 3:30, sitting up with a gasp. "Nick? Oh my God, you scared me to death." "Did I? That's interesting, considering what you've been putting in my food." Even in the darkness, I could see her calculating her response. "I don't know what you're talking about. You're acting paranoid again. Maybe you should call Dr. Peterson." Dr. Peterson was the psychiatrist I'd seen for PTSD counseling. She was trying to use my mental health history to deflect from her own crimes. "I saw the footage, Claire. The kitchen camera recorded everything. Her face footage. Evicted and your little chemistry experiment. The green smoothies. The late-night meetings. All of it." She started crying, but they were calculated tears. "Nick, please listen to me. You're sick. You're seeing things that aren't there. David is just a friend who's been helping me understand what you're going through. By helping you poison our children? I would never hurt Ellie and Max. How can you even say that?" But her protest sounded hollow, now that I knew what she was capable of. I pulled out my phone and played the audio recording Eli had made of her conversation with Trish outside the hospital. "Nick is so clueless. Next week, we finish the plan. David's got it all set up." Claire's face crumpled. "You're recording me? You're spying on your own wife? My own wife is trying to destroy my life. I'm trying to save your life. You're having another breakdown, Nick. The paranoia, the surveillance equipment, the accusations. You need help." She was good. If I hadn't seen the evidence with my own eyes, I might have believed her. Call David, I said. What? Call your boyfriend. Tell him to come over. It's time we all had a conversation. Nick, please, call him now, or I call the police and show them everything I've recorded. With shaking hands, she dialed David's number. David? Nick is here. He wants to talk to you. Please come over. David arrived within 20 minutes, which told me he'd been nearby. Probably at Trish's apartment, waiting for Claire's call. He walked into our living room like he owned it, wearing expensive jeans and a polo shirt that cost more than most people's weekly salary. Nick, he said with false concern, Claire's told me you've been struggling lately. I want you to know, as a friend, I'm here to help. As a friend, I repeated. Is that what you call it when you're screwing another man's wife? His mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw the real David Halloran. Cold, calculating, and completely without conscience. I think you're confused, he said carefully. Claire and I work together. We're colleagues, nothing more. Pulled out my phone and showed him the surveillance photos Eli had taken. David and Claire kissing in the hotel parking lot. David's hands on her body. Claire laughing at his whispers. Colleagues, I said. Right.
Sure.
David's composure cracked completely. Look, Nick, I know this is hard to understand, but Claire came to me for help. She was scared of you. Scared of what you might do during one of your episodes. I was just trying to be supportive. By stealing medical supplies from the hospital, by planning my resolution, brushing of them froze. They hadn't expected me to know about the storage unit or the timeline. I don't know what you're talking about, Claire whispered. Phase 1. Make Nick sick and erratic. Phase 2. Public incidents to establish mental instability. Phase 3. Resolution. Your handwriting, Claire. Your plan. David stood up abruptly. I think we should call the police. Nick, you're clearly having a psychotic break. You're making wild accusations. You've been stalking us. You vandalized my car. Call them, I said. I'd love to show them the evidence I've collected. For the first time, David looked genuinely worried. What evidence? Everything. The storage unit, the stolen medical supplies, the pills you've been using to make me sick, the financial records showing your debt to some very dangerous people in Chicago. David's face went gray. You broke into my storage unit? Technician, my friend did. He's very good at his job. Claire was crying again, but these tears looked real. David, you said this would work. You said Nick would never figure it out. Shut up, Claire. You said we'd be together, that we'd have enough money to start over somewhere else. I said shut up. David's composure was completely gone now. He was showing his true colors. The desperate, violent man who'd been planning to destroy my life for money. So what's the plan now? I asked. Phase 3 was supposed to be my resolution. But I'm still here, still breathing, still married to your girlfriend. David pulled a tool from his jacket. Not for long, he said. The tool changed everything, but not in the way David expected. You brought a tool into my house, I said calmly, in front of my wife, while threatening me. That's going to look really bad on the security footage. David's eyes widened as he realized his mistake. What security footage? The cameras I never actually disabled. The ones that have been recording this entire conversation, including your confession, and the part where you just threatened to end me. It was a bluff, but a good one. I'd disabled the alarm system, but the cameras were on a separate circuit. You're lying, David said, but his voice shook. Am I? Check the red lights, David. Count the cameras. Ask yourself if a security specialist would really leave his house unmonitored. Razier was looking around frantically, spotting the small red lights I was talking about. David, put the tool away. This is getting out of hand. It's already out of hand, David snapped. He knows everything. If we don't finish this tonight, we're both going to prison. Nobody's going to prison, I said, because nobody's committed any crimes that can't be undone. Yet. What do you mean? The medical supplies can be returned. The pills you used on me were probably just mild sedatives or hallucinogens. Hallucinogens. Annoying, but not permanently harmful. Even adultery isn't a crime in this state. I stood up slowly, keeping my hands visible. But homicide is, and threatening someone with a tool is assault with a deadly tool. So far, David, You're the only one in this room who's committed a felony tonight. David's hand was shaking now. He wasn't a butcher, he was a con man who'd gotten in over his head. There's still a way out of this, I continued. You put the tool down, you and Claire end your relationship. You return the stolen supplies, and we all pretend this never happened. I keep my family, you keep your freedom, and everyone walks away. What about my debt? David asked desperately. The people I owe money to don't accept payment plans. Not my problem. You should have thought about that before you decided to destroy my life. Claire was sobbing now. Nick, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. David said you'd never find out, that we'd just take some money and disappear. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. But you were willing to pills our children. I wasn't. Those containers were just to make you think I was. David said we needed evidence that you were paranoid and delusional. I never actually gave anything to Ellie and Max. Believe her, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. David, I said, last chance. Put the tool down. Instead, he raised it higher, pointing it directly at my chest. I can't go to prison, Nick, and I can't go back to Chicago empty-handed. This is the only way. No, I said, this is. I pressed a button on my phone, and every light in the house came on at once. The security system's emergency lighting, the regular house lights, even the outdoor floodlights. The house lit up like a stadium. At the same time, the sprinkler system activated, drenching all three of us with cold water. David cursed and stumbled backward, temporarily blinded by the sudden brightness and confused by the water. I tackled him while he was disoriented, knocking the tool from his hand. We crashed into the coffee table, scattering magazines and picture frames. David was bigger than me, but I had military training and the advantage of surprise. Claire, get the tool, I shouted while wrestling with David. Instead, she ran for the front door. David managed to throw me off and scrambled after the tool, but his expensive leather shoes slipped on the wet hardwood floor. He went down hard, cracking his head against the stone fireplace hearth. I grabbed the tool and pointed it at him while he groaned and held his injured scalp. Stay down, David. Outside, I could hear car doors slamming and voices shouting. The emergency lighting and sprinkler system had attracted attention from the neighbors. Someone had called the police. Mrs. Callahan's voice carried across the yard. Officers, thank goodness you're here. There's been shouting and fighting, and the whole house lit up like a Christmas tree. She was on the front porch, soaking wet and hysterical, trying to explain to the arriving police officers that her husband had attacked her boyfriend. But her story didn't match the evidence. David was the one with the tool. David was the one with stolen medical supplies in his storage unit. And David was the one who'd been caught on camera confessing to a conspiracy. Detective Morrison, Jake's brother, took my statement while paramedics treated David's head injury. I told him everything, showed him the evidence Eli and I had collected, and played the recordings of their confessions. This is quite a story, Mr. Warren, Detective Morrison said. Your brother Jake mentioned you might be having some domestic troubles. Jake saw the security footage of my wife and her boyfriend in my kitchen at 3 a.m. He was concerned for my children's safety. And where are your children now? Safe with my brother's family. They've been there since I discovered what was happening. Detective Morrison nodded approvingly. Good thinking. We'll need to interview them to make sure they weren't harmed, but it sounds like you protected them. David was arrested for assault with a deadly tool, theft of medical supplies, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Claire was arrested as an accessory, though her lawyer would probably get her a plea deal in exchange for testimony against David. As they loaded David into the police car, he looked back at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, Nick. Yes, it is, I replied. Your debt collectors are going to be very interested to learn you're in jail instead of paying them back. Good luck with that. The last thing I saw was the fear in his eyes as he realized what that meant. Claire tried to talk to me as they put her in the second police car. Nick, please. I know I made mistakes, but we can work this out. For the kids' sake. I looked at the woman I'd loved for 12 years, the mother of my children, the person who'd tried to destroy my life for money and a relationship with a con man. The kids deserve better than this, I said. They deserve better than both of us. But mostly, they deserved better than her. Epilogue. The resolution. Later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office signing the final divorce papers. Claire had pled guilty to conspiracy and received 2 years of probation in exchange for her testimony against David. He'd been sentenced to 5 years in state prison. The stolen medical supplies had been returned to the hospital. The pills they'd been using on me were exactly what Eli had suspected. Mild hallucinogens and sedatives designed to make me appear mentally unstable. My doctor confirmed that the effects were temporary and hadn't caused any permanent damage. Claire's friend Trish had been fired from the hospital and charged as an accessory. Jared, the medical supply clerk, had received immunity in exchange for his cooperation with the prosecution. I got full custody of Ellie and Max. Claire was allowed supervised visitation once a week, which she rarely used. She'd moved back in with her parents in another state and was working as a receptionist in a dental office. The kids were in therapy, trying to understand why Mommy had done bad things and couldn't live with us anymore. They were resilient, but the damage would probably last for years. As for David's debt collectors, they'd found other ways to recover their money. I heard through Eli's contacts that they'd seized David's house, his cars, and his business assets. His wife had divorced him and moved to Florida with their teenagers. The storage unit had contained more than just medical supplies. David had been running several insurance fraud schemes and identity theft operations. The FBI had gotten involved, adding federal charges to his state conviction. He'd be in prison for a very long time. I kept the house but changed all the locks and updated the security system. Mrs. Callahan still waved from her garden, but now her smiles were genuine instead of pitying. "How are you doing, Nick?" she'd ask. "Really doing?" "Better," I'd tell her. "We're all doing better." And it was true. The kids were laughing again, sleeping through the night, bringing me pictures they'd drawn at school. I was cooking dinner every night, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories. We were building a new normal. Eli stopped by one evening while I was grilling burgers in the backyard. Ellie and Max were playing on their swing set, arguing about who could swing higher. "Any regrets?" he asked, accepting a beer from the cooler. I thought about it while watching my children play. About the investigation, about exposing Claire and David, about fighting back instead of just accepting what they were doing to us. Any of it. "No," I said. "I regret that it happened at all. I regret that my kids had to go through this. I regret that I didn't see the signs sooner. But I don't regret protecting my family." "Even though it cost you your marriage?" "My marriage ended the night Claire decided to betray everything we'd built together. I just made sure she didn't destroy us in the process." Eli nodded and raised his beer bottle in a toast. "To new beginnings." "To surviving the old ones," I corrected. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat in my home office looking at the security monitors. All the cameras showed exactly what they should. Empty rooms in a quiet house where 2 children slept safely in their beds. No shadows that didn't belong there. No conspiracies brewing in my kitchen. No strangers planning my destruction. Just peace. I turned off the monitors and went to bed in my own house, in my own room, with my children safe down the hall. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without nightmares. The next morning, I made breakfast for Ellie and Max. Scrambled eggs, toast, and orange juice. Nothing green, nothing mysterious, nothing that hadn't come from ingredients I'd personally selected at the grocery store. "Daddy," Ellie said between bites of toast, "are you going to get married again?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe someday. Would that be okay with you?" She considered this seriously. "Only if she's nice to us, and only if she doesn't try to poison you." Out of the mouths of babes. "I promise," I told her, "that I'll never let anyone hurt our family again." And I meant it. I'd learned the hard way that the people closest to you can be the most dangerous enemies. But I'd also learned that sometimes fighting back is the only way to protect the people you love. Claire and David had tried to destroy my life, steal my children, and probably get me ended. Instead, they'd destroyed themselves. Justice isn't always pretty, but sometimes It's exactly what people deserve.
빨간 걸로 해가지고 빨간 걸로. 야, 좋다. 이거 이렇게 좋다. 깔끔한데? 어때? 깔끔하지? 싸. 2,500원. 싸요, 싸. 딱 이쁘게 또 포장까지 해주셨네. 원래 이렇게 잘 포장 안 해주거든. 싸게 했네, 오늘. 싸게. 좀 이따가 이제 이동할게요. 5시 반쯤에. 아니야. 이게 맞아, 방송은 이게 맞아요. 이걸 입고 가야 어그로가 끌려. 이걸 입고 가야 어그로가 끌려요. 이게 어차피 날 것이란 말이야. 방송이 보라잖아. 어차피 뭐 엑셀이 아니잖아. 엑셀이면은 깔끔하게 입고 나가야 돼. 근데 엑셀이 아니기 때문에 약간 좀 골 때리게 입고 가야 돼. 봐봐, 요렇게 약간 골 때리게. 이게